human creativity is still of the utmost importance and value. I think that there's a lot of slop coming out, but I think that, but when it comes to automation, I think, I'm not necessarily hugely bullish on agentic AI taking over everyone's jobs. I think that there's a lot that AI can do to help people be better, but just for it to completely take over and be this super intelligence, I don't necessarily think that that's here yet.
So Sean Hise, you were introduced to me as a person running one of the hottest vibe coding and consulting services in the Midwest. You're the CEO of Crafted, a digital agency that builds web apps, mobile apps, and web services so the companies can build faster and scale smarter. In your own words, how would you explain what your company does?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way to explain what we do is that we design and build stuff for other people. Startup, a mid-sized company, or an enterprise. We have clients all over the gamut. And we also work with a plethora of kind of larger marketing agencies, think like Mad Men style companies that are doing ads and need digital support as well. So yeah, we've been doing this for over 10 years. And, we watched the kind of the landscape of the industry, change over the years. And now we're kind of in that AI era. And so that's been fun.
So for somebody who doesn't know what vibe coding is, how would you explain it?
Vibe coding it's kind of a maligned term in some ways, but it's also very popular. It was coined by a former Tesla engineer, and it was kind of this aha moment, I think, early 2025. Where he was kind of on Twitter and going on a rant, we're talking about, how coding with AI, there's this concept of kind of letting go and letting AI kind of take the wheel. And that was very different than kind of how people were using AI to help them write code in the past, where it was like kind of autocomplete assistance. But the tools and the technologies had matured far enough along where they could just kind of do it. Obviously, you're there, human in the loop. And the concept of vibe coding is, I think, probably specifically best characterized is when you're prototyping out new ideas and you need to move really quickly, and the code quality might not matter at that point in the project as much. And you're just kind of trying to prove out some concepts, build something to see if you have anything, put it in front of a customer. And tools like Lovable, for example, are putting out MVPs within, 30 minutes, an hour. It doesn't matter, the time. You can kind of create something depending on the scope of it really quickly, and use that as kind of your starting point versus kind of where you may have been in the past, where just to even get a prototype out there, something that, is clickable, real, may take 3-4 weeks or more, or months, depending on the scope of it.
How have you leveraged this technology in your agency?
So everyone at the company that writes code utilizes a platform called Cursor, which was a fork of the VS Code product from Microsoft, which is the most popular code editor on the market at the time. And Cursor built a product that allows you to have an AI assistant along inside your development environment. And so you can spawn agents, you can have conversations, you can run terminal commands, you can build infrastructure all within this one product. And from a coding perspective, there's kind of 3 ways to use it. There's the planning tool, which allows you to write plans and then verify them, review them, and then actually build them. That gets into the agent protocol as well as the ask protocol. So if you're just asking questions of a code base, you can do that as well.
Okay, interesting. So how has this changed how you build apps at your company? You explained a little bit about it already, but do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've reflected on it a lot, and I would say I guess the most dramatic impact is just the ability to take on more work. So taking on more work with the same amount of people and being a little bit more ambitious with delivering, and also taking on customers in a new way. We have customers that are coming to us that understand that the concept of vibe coding. They understand the concepts of AI assisted software development. And they're even going and bringing, hey, here's my Lovable prototype I built. Can you take it to the next level? So the engagement models are changing, the expectations are changing, and it's a challenge and it's an opportunity. So it's kind of a balance of the enhanced expectations from the clients along with the enhanced capabilities of the team.
What are some challenges that you're kind of seeing at the moment?
I think that one challenge I'll call out is specifically with tools like Lovable or even a Figma Maker, some of these design focused coding tools that are building out MVPs, is a lot of customers may have different levels of expectations of what that's actually creating. And since it's coming from a non-technical creator that doesn't have experience, not necessarily a lot of experience taming down the bad parts of AI when it comes to generating slop, for example, they may be thinking they're handing off something that's ready to go. That's just, hey, take this to the next level. And really the reality might be the whole thing has to be refactored, and really that deliverable should be considered more of a specification than a starting point, which is a very common thing I've run into 3 or 4 times in the last 2 months.
Uh, so what kind of clients do you usually have? What kind of problems do, so if I would be a customer and I would come to you, I would have this beautiful, lovable design. I would be like, "Hey, can you help me out? To build this." What kind of challenges do you kind of see that? Okay, this should be so easy to make, and then you look under the hood and it's actually like a lot of work. Is this a kind of like typical scenario, or how do you see it?
Great question. I think there's a couple pitfalls I think I'm seeing, and I mean because we're talking about challenges right now, because there's obviously a lot of great things, but from a challenges perspective, it's maybe taking on too broad of a scope initially. So they may go really deep in features and functionality. They may lose focus on the core value of the product because of these things like Lovable, because of the amount that you can just create. And it just creates a lot of slop. It just creates a lot of extra stuff. And it may not even have an explanation for it. You're like, what does that chart do? And they're like, I don't know, it looked great. But, obviously that at the end of the day, that has to tie back to some data, right? And I think it kind of skips a few really important steps when it comes to really thinking through functionality, really thinking through things as a human, and living in reality versus, just creating something that at first glance is going to look really good, but it might not actually have anything behind it in terms of value. And it might create a lot of distraction, and ultimately, might hurt the product development process.
So, in other words, would you say it's like a car without a motor and wheels or anything else? It just looks good on the outside, but it actually is not so nice on the inside.
Yeah, definitely. It might look good at first, right? But it's kind of like, the first time you buy a Tesla, right? And, the difference between a Ford and a Tesla, obviously Tesla has these great things, right? It's a very simplistic system, works really well, but like their manufacturing quality standards in terms of like their body, where a Ford might go down to like a milli-inch, where they would cause a defect, Tesla will just ship it and be like, it's okay. And next time, the person closes their trunk, it doesn't perfectly align. And there's all kinds of YouTube videos about that. But it's like a similar concept, right? Where it's like there's some really cool things that are happening here, but and eventually, hard reality sets in, which is your database needs to be really well designed and needs to scale, right? You have to have something that's going to actually function when a user goes all the way through the process of creating an account to using all the features, right? And that's not easy to do. And it'll be interesting to see how some of the tool chains respond to that. I think that you'll see a lot more guardrails get put around the human to make sure that they're not putting a bunch of slop together, make sure it's going to go all the way through from front end to back end to database to scale, and making sure that that stuff's, eventually will work in production, essentially.
What's your message to like future clients or potential clients that why should they choose your agency and
Well, I think that we've always been on the forefront of technology, in terms of staying up with the latest stuff. I think in 2015, when a lot of the new tools for development were coming out from Facebook, like React, for example, which changed the way we built our front end applications forever, whether it was native or web, we were right on that. When I came to, okay, our developers need to start leveraging AI, we've been doing that for, since 2023 at some level, when ChatGPT really started to hit its stride. And so it's just the maturity of the team in terms of utilizing best practices, knowing how to move quickly without losing quality, and just being an experienced team when it comes to understanding product, understanding business, revenue cycle, being able to be both kind of a tech and delivery team but also someone that you can ask questions about your product and get, honest answers.
How do you motivate your team to be kind of on the forefront of AI, or keep them kind of because the AI is moving so fast. There's so many new updates all the time. There's a Claude, there's Lovable, there's so many tools coming out all the time. What are some kind of cultural things you do within the company that you to really enhance that kind of learning and really get them to people motivated to really be on the forefront?
Yeah, I think that it's always been something where we're constantly sharing things with each other. On Fridays, we kind of do a show and tell with new things, and developers get to participate that and show off their new stuff. Um, and just kind of setting that tone at the top. I'm the CEO of the company, but I'm also a technical CEO. So we really drive that. And I look to CEOs like the CEO of Vercel, for example, as someone who I can't butcher his name, but his first name Guillermo. He's from Argentina. I always look to him as as a leader in the industry in terms of being a technical CEO. Because it's not easy. Because obviously you need the CEO to run the company, but it helps if you're a really tech focused team to have someone driving things from the top and understanding the tech, understanding where the opportunities are, where we need to skill up, and things like that.
Awesome. You said that you had, we talked a little bit about the challenges, but what are some of the opportunities within AI?
I think that it's just when done right, it's the biggest accelerant I've ever seen. And when you put the right rigor and process around it, you can do some amazing things, and you can really one shot some of these hard features in your application with good quality. And that's kind of the goal, right? So we really want to create a good plan. We want to validate the plan, right? And then hitting the execution button should almost be an afterthought, right? The plan should be contained enough that the risk is low, right? And then the output is going to be really quality. And if you can kind of just rinse and repeat that over and over and over, pick a good tech stack, you're going to put yourself in a really good position. And I'm not even really talking about using AI inside your product in terms of building AI features. I'm more just talking about purely using AI to help your process and being more effective and more efficient, which is really where we've chosen to play. We don't actually build a ton of AI products. We're helping companies that are building traditional SaaS enterprise software build their products faster. So it's kind of a different take. It's a little bit more practical.
Yeah. Do you have any references to kind of share what you've done for some clients that they're allowed to share?
Yeah. So right now, we're working with a company called USA Football, who's taking flag football to the Olympics in 2028. We're revamping their entire digital infrastructure, going from a kind of a governing body to Olympic governing body is a huge transition. So we build out all their digital tooling. We're coming out with a new mobile app for them. We work with the energy grid for a company in the Midwest called MISO, MISO, and we do all of their mobile, and we're building integrations into all their enterprise backend databases and through one interface. And so kind of modernizing their entire tech stack. And then we're working with a startup in Bloomington, Indiana called Motion, and they're really tackling the collegiate athletic space, which has changed a lot in the United States because now you can pay your players. So traditionally, you would have to just offer a scholarship or a walk-on opportunity for an athlete in the NCAA, which is the organization that governs athletics in college. Now you can, through what's called NIL, you can actually name, image, and likeness. You can actually facilitate payment to players. And with all of that comes a ton of compliance and all this stuff. And so we're building an app and an ecosystem for them to manage all of that. And that company has raised over $2 million, and they're scaling their revenue and their customer base right now. And obviously everything that we do with all those customers involves, leveraging AI to move faster. So.
Oh, that's really awesome. Has AI surprised you in any way in the past, say 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think that just the scope of the context is insane. So like if you think about the ability for a tool like Cursor to index your code base and really be able to quickly get to context with loose search terms. So like if you're starting out a feature and you just want to kind of warm up the system, which is what I'll do sometimes, I'll be like, hey, just FYI, today we're going to work on authentication. And it'll be like, okay, yeah, let me just go get smart on that for like 30 seconds. And it'll come back and it'll fully understand the entire system. And you're just like, wow. that's really cool. Now I have this companion that just by asking a single question has this huge context window, and we can start working from there. And I think that's the most like impressive or surprising thing is just the ability for tools like that, and even ChatGPT. And for those who use ChatGPT, it's like I don't know if you saw that chart that came out around the usage and the retention of their users. It kind of started and it went down, and then it's curved way back up because what happened is the product got more useful as people kept using it because of the context it was able to keep about you. And people woke up 4 or 5 months after just passively using ChatGPT and like, wow, this thing really gets me. And that's the hook. That's the thing that's keeping these people addicted is these long context windows and the ability for them to program efficiently. Like, hey, you need to learn about this code base. You need to learn about this person to enhance their experience. And that is what's creating that insane customer retention on these new products.
We're talking about the human creativity and AI automation. What's your take on that?
I think that just from personal experience, I think that human creativity is still of the utmost importance and value. I think that there's a lot of slop coming out, but I think that but when it comes to automation, I think, I'm not necessarily hugely bullish on agentic AI taking over everyone's jobs. I think that there's a lot that AI can do to help people be better, but just for it to completely take over and be this super intelligence, I don't necessarily think that that's here yet. I think that a lot of enterprises, people underestimate how inefficient their processes and how unstructured their data flows are. And so for them to be able to implement tools like this, there's probably a lot of money being wasted at that high level, like that North Star, oh, we just need to automate everything. We need agents to do everything. And what I would focus on if I was running a big corporation is more ground up, you know, help people be more efficient in their current job. Sure, there may be some things that you get so efficient that you may need to think about your headcount or move people to different roles. But I believe in humans, and I think that it's important for us not to get too caught up in just replacing humans with AI because obviously that is going to have a lot of economic impact. And hopefully with AI too, we can open up new industries and new opportunities for people to do jobs that they never had before. There's a morality and an ethical responsibility that we all have here. And the impacts are being seen already. So hopefully speed and wealth and all the things that come with all this capital investment, are balanced out with, thinking about the human impact as well.
Definitely. You were talking a little bit about like the fear of jobs and AI taking people's jobs. What's your advice to people in the same industry as you? What kind of AI tools you use and what's been your biggest benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the advice would be to get on board probably at some level with leveraging AI in your workflows, but and not thinking, if you're just getting into it, don't just think you're not handing over your thoughts and your designs and your strategies. You're not handing everything over. You're using it as an assistant to make you better. I think that there's also times where it's important to bring only a human element into things. But if you go and you're doing an interview and you don't have experience thinking through being able to have that conversation, think things through, have experience using the tooling, it's not going to benefit you. The other thing I would say is because of the ability to do things quicker, I think it's just being a little bit more ambitious about what you take on and trying to learn new things really quickly, try out new technologies. If you're working at a company where it's the status quo and, you're working through your tickets, I've seen people that have been, their careers have been completely reinvigorated because of AI, because they're in a management role, but they have some technical experience. And now with that limited time they had, they weren't able to do much. But now with AI, they can take on a couple side projects that really add a ton of company value because they're high agency people. They have a lot of experience. They have to run the whole team. But now with that 20% of extra time they have, they can do some really cool stuff without it being like something that just never gets done because, obviously we only have so many hours in the day. So yeah, I think that would be my general thoughts and advice for people that are kind of in that space or being impacted by this, huge change.
I like the fact when you said in the beginning that you use it quite a lot as a planning tool. Did I get it correctly that before you start a project for the cold planning phase, you use AI quite a lot so that it's much more easier to implement it or create the things that you want to create because of the planning done so well when you've used AI?
Yeah, I think that's critical. If you're doing anything software development related, the planning needs to go from business requirements all the way down to critical technical requirements. And then you review that. If you do both of those things and spend the a little extra time, the actual code writing process will go way faster, and you'll have much less of what happens. This is why a lot of people complain about vibe coding is they'll get stuck, and what happens is that they were way off to begin with, and they sent them themselves down the wrong path, and they have a lot of bugs. So not putting the right structure and guardrails around what was going on just generates a lot of slop, generates a lot of stuff that you don't need. And then you end up just circling the drain on these like really, really hard to fix bugs. So I could go on for days about that. But yeah, planning doesn't take it, it's pretty critical in terms of defining what you want, but it doesn't necessarily take any longer if you add that step. The overall process is probably going to be shorter.
I actually heard about some startups that they built their products with vibe coding, but the planning phase was done poorly, and then they ended up with a lot of bugs, and it's very hard to fix later on because they don't know where to find them, and they don't know how to fix them, and then they've generated some success within the company, and then they're like they almost have to build the product from scratch. Have you had these? Have you heard about similar projects, or what's your
Oh
message
yeah.
about it?
Oh yeah. Even at the most experienced level, if you're not, especially at the beginning, if you're not really going back and making sure, if let's say you didn't do a very good job planning, you need to spend a lot of time reviewing what kind of ecosystem you're building, right? It's because if it's not on a strong foundation, it's going to crumble. And we've actually changed our entire tech stack for building new apps because of it. So we used to build things in a more decoupled nature where you have your front end, your back end, maybe your services all as maybe separate projects with separate resources working on them. We've moved back to a completely monolithic architecture so that the AI has context of the entire app and everything from database API to front end. And so you can build full stack apps way quicker, but it understands the context of all the things. So it doesn't get caught going down the wrong path, and you can leverage that scale and move faster. So it's kind of interesting that the vibe coding stack is a real thing. And I think if you're looking into building entire apps with AI, I would consider something more monolithic where everything's in one place so that you can leverage AI and just build out entire features in one shot.
Where do you see digital agencies in the next couple of years with AI moving forward?
I think that there's probably going to be some cost pressures and potentially. I think that there will be a lot of vetting opportunities differently because they're coming in from a different place. Like we talked about, people coming in with prototypes. Also think there's just a lot of opportunities to grow inside organizations and provide value quicker because it's always tough. The software industry is hard because things traditionally take a while, right? And if you can work with a client that's being diligent about what they want, helping in the planning process, participating in the right ways, you can do a lot with them. But at the same time, with clients and industries, if we're talking specifically about AI, I've seen a lot of kind of sloppy stuff come over. And so that's something that is going to be a new challenge for agencies too, is how do we deal with this, stuff that we're getting that's just not on point. And I think you just have to apply the same level of diligence, and ask a lot of questions. It's going to be garbage in, garbage out if everybody's just slopping things back and forth.
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I wish you all the best, and can't wait to see what your digital agency does in the future.
Yeah, no, thanks for the invite, and hope to talk soon. Take care.